I had visited Israel a number of times and found out that the total irrigable land in Israel, or the total farmland, is actually 1 million acres. So I wondered, since Galana lies between two big rivers, Tana River and Athi River, why don't we do square inch by square inch duplication of irrigation in Israel? We have more water, we have more land in that particular area than the whole state of Israel. And that is how I started conceptualizing the Galana ranch.
Former chairman of the Parliamentary Agriculture Committee, John Mututho, taking us back to how the Galana Irrigation Scheme dream was conceptualized. A visit to Galana on a fact-finding mission on how 8,000 livestock went missing turned into what is now Kenya's biggest irrigation scheme.
I went and had meetings with the NIB that time, and I really do thank the CEO, Mr. Balaza, and his general manager, Mugambi, and they listened to me for long hours. I made submissions. One time at the same spot where we are conducting the interview, we had a meeting up to 1 a.m. and we talked and spoke. They went and tried to study and check on the economic viability of my suggestion.
A dream that was embraced by the Jubilee government by launching the 400 billion shillings 1 million acre Galana Irrigation Scheme, a project seeking to double Kenya's annual maize production from 40 million bags to 80 million bags and hopefully bring down the prices of unga. And later in January 2014, the assuring sound of the engine as plow meets land. President Uhuru Kenyatta officially launched the project, giving hope to the people of Tana River and Kilifi counties that indeed theirs was not barren land.
Mimi naamini ya kwamba tutasema kwa heri kwa umaskini katika taifa letu la Kenya. Na hii miradi hatuanzishi katika sehemu moja peke yake, tunazianzisha katika kila sehemu ya jamhuri yetu ya Kenya.
Shortly after its launch, the Galana project would experience some delays as the Ministry of Agriculture, in conjunction with the National Irrigation Board, shopped for a suitable company to carry out the project, a delay that led to speculations as to whether the project was indeed viable.
What was pending was to ensure that the designs are ready for the real laying of the irrigation infrastructure in the farm. And since the designs are ready, the only thing that remains now is to move on and try now to do construction.
There seemed to be light at the end of the tunnel for Kenya's biggest irrigation project in June last year, when the government finally signed a deal with Green Arava, an Israeli fresh produce export company, to undertake the project. But once again, the project experienced delays over what the National Irrigation Board says was a challenge in clearing of land.
We had an activity which we did bush clearing. Unfortunately, we cleared bush about 15-20 kilometers from here, but we discovered we had cleared in other people's land, at least the land which the ADs had listed to other people.
Afterwards, in May this year, sites of green healthy maize filled the farm at Galana after Green Arava finally managed to plant maize under the first 500 acres of land, settling the doubts in many people's minds on the viability of the Galana project.
We are having many varieties, and all of them are reacting differently to disease and pest damage. So we look at that so that we pick on the best. And if there is any challenge that's going to go beyond the variety, then we apply the recommended pest control measures against fungi and against pests.
Galana River, 4 years ago, it was just another river helping the community around here fulfill their domestic obligations. But today, this water is being used to irrigate the massive Galana Irrigation Scheme. The National Irrigation Board says the natural flow of River Galana can comfortably irrigate 20,000 acres of land.
Because of the elaborate nature of the intake, we cannot put all the pumps together. And also because of the proximity of the area to be irrigated to the source of water, we have to minimize the cost. That's why we had separated the two pumping stations.
The scheme is expected to have 500,000 acres of land under maize eventually, a journey which will require the National Irrigation Board to construct a 2 billion cubic meters dam, which will improve water storage and supply to the scheme.
The other 500,000, which to make it 1 million, has to be gotten from the Tana River. And the development, that depends on the development of the High Grand Falls Dam, which is being handled elsewhere. Therefore, once that one is developed, since it's not being developed right now, then we can do the 1 million.
While in 2013, this was just forest land that did little to inspire Kenyans on the project's viability. Today, hundreds of acres are under maize, a sight that has humbled the proverbial doubting Thomases.
A few years ago, you could never have believed that out of the bushes and the thickets of the Galana, such a beautiful crop could be realized. But through technology, through irrigation, through partnership with our good friends from Israel, today this has become a reality.
And so on this day, Green Arava was ready to harvest the first crop from the scheme. A moment that indeed would serve as an assurance to Kenyans that the journey to getting cheaper unga was firmly on course.
It is our expectation that within this month, towards the end of this month, opening into the month of October, we should be able to see the prices coming down. Our target reduction is from the average 115 shillings for 2 kg bag to less than 100 shillings. We are in continuous discussions with the millers and we hope that this is going to happen.
And of course, if you were doubting whether the maize from Galana can make a good maize meal, the tasting and the sharing. I didn't even know you can make cake from maize flour until they did it at Galana. For John Mutudo, who was behind the idea of this massive scheme, he hopes that Kenya will finally achieve its vision of a food-secure nation.
For me to see a full comb, and to taste the maize from Galana, and to look around and look at the area where they produce maize, and again to hear that it's going to be cheaper, maybe a third of the normal maize, that was very, very fulfilling. It's only that men don't cry, they don't shout like ours do. But that was a very, very, very exciting moment.
The maize production at Galana is expected to be 40 bags per acre, making the first harvest from 500 acres 20,000 bags. The National Irrigation Board is working on a long-term storage solution.
In the meantime, we think we may go with the option that we've been offered by National Cereals and Produce Board to store it in their voice stores. In the next crop, which we should be starting to plant, assuming that there will be no El Nino, which we should start planting in about 45 days from now, will be stored here.
Now, the prices of food commodities in the country have been going up in the recent months, and with the first crop at the Galana Irrigation Scheme, many Kenyans can only hope that prices of commodities such as maize flour will eventually come down. Kenya has on many occasions considered importing maize from neighboring countries like Tanzania and Uganda to bridge the production deficit. From the Galana Irrigation Scheme project, Kenya is expected to produce enough maize for local consumption and even surplus for export.
Now that Kenya has its own seed company and Kenya has its own fertilizer company that will be ready by June next year, there is no reason why we should keep Kenya waiting for rain. The answer in removing Kenya from the list of food insecure nations of the world is irrigation.
This has, however, raised concerns on how having too much maize from the Galana Irrigation Scheme may affect small-scale farmers in the country. The Ministry of Agriculture reckons it has put in place various measures to ensure small-scale farmers are not forced out of business.
Galana is not supposed to kill other farmers. Galana is supposed to supplement the other farmers, to supplement the maize production in the country. Therefore, I do not expect a major impact on any other farm.
We were careful to also come up with a diversification project targeting the farmers who are in the traditional maize producing areas. And in those areas we have intensified dairy. We are setting up infrastructure to support dairy farming. A new bull station has been put up as part of supporting farmers in the North Rift. We have also put up a liquid nitrogen plant in the same region and other regions as well. 6 of them are already near completion to be able to support dairy at the commercial level. We are also working with the farmers in those areas to encourage them to move into other products such as soya, which is doing very, very well in that area. We have also gotten onto a strategy to introduce a sim-sim, a product that is in high demand, but which we have not been producing. We are also working with the farmers to also embrace what we call the traditional high-value crops, the cassava, the sweet potatoes.
The Galana Irrigation Scheme will, however, not be home to maize alone. Once more land is cleared and the necessary irrigation infrastructure is put in place, other crops including fruits, vegetables, sugarcane, as well as poultry, beef and dairy farming will be introduced at the scheme.
Government will only stop at putting up the dam and only the main infrastructure, doing irrigation infrastructure. However, everything else will be done by the private sector.
But even as the country wakes up to a new dawn as far as irrigation is concerned, the question would be whether the Galana project is sustainable and whether indeed such a model can be replicated in other irrigation schemes.
The whole land, including deserts in Israel, is less than all the surface area we have under fresh water in Kenya. Yet we don't know what to do with our water on our land. If you look at now like Turkana, look at Wasonyeru, look at Narok, look at even Kiambu itself, then you understand. I'm aware the Minister of Agriculture, KBCU, and the Minister of Water are doing something which is very, very commendable. They're introducing high-tech production.
The project, which is funded by both the Kenyan and the Israeli governments, is expected to benefit residents of Kilifi and Tana River counties in more ways than one.
היכולת של ישראל היא בהחלט גם ללמוד מכם, מקניה, וגם להעביר ידע בתחום החקלאות, ואכן סיכמנו.
We agreed on establishing a center here for training and capacity building in water and irrigation and other fields in agriculture to share the Israel experience where we succeeded to make the desert blooming.
We have discussed and it has been agreed that this institute is going to be called the Kenya-Israel Mashav Agricultural Training Institute. We have also, as the minister rightly said, are cooperating in other areas, not just irrigation, not just technical training, but There is the issue of opening direct flights between Kenya and Israel.
Now, when the government announced that it was going to undertake a massive irrigation project at the Galana Irrigation Scheme, 1 million acres worth, many people thought it was a pipe dream. But if the progress at the scheme is anything to go by, then Kenya may be well on its way to bridging the maize importation gap. Ruth Mutegi for Channel 1 Business at the Galana Irrigation Scheme.